Hey guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Tonight I'm doing a review on the second episode. I don't know, I'm doing these arm gestures. The second episode of The Bachelor. There's a lot to unpack with this, but I kind of just took notes per usual. So I have my Mac right here. So if you see me looking over, I'm just kind of reviewing the notes so I can just recite them to you in order. So first off, we start out with a little thirst trap. We see Matt in the shower, just reminiscing on the past episode. I'm like, all right, we already know what Matt's like. We already know what he's about, but everyone's really like all up on this man, just like in love. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this is why he's a bachelor. This is why everyone's like thirsting over him. And this is why he had like a record number of women sign up for him, because they kind of reference that not only like in the articles, but in this episode as well. So we see the women walking together and approaching like the hotel resort things. Again, I'm not really sure with how the accommodations work. We see them walking and they're kind of just talking about the previous episode and how they're just really thrilled that they were able to get picked. And some of them kind of made references at the first and last time that they talked to him was when they left the limo. So it's kind of like really wild that they were able to get picked by him, considering that they didn't have that much time with him. So it's kind of just interesting how much of a big first impression you need to make to continue on the show, because there's just so many other people and one bachelor. Chris Harrison also mentions to the girl that there's like a record number of girls that are there and that they're not all going to get individual dates. There's just too many girls there to really have like that one-on-one time and maybe get the impression that they need. So it just kind of shows that there's that much more at stake and it's just that much harder to get his attention. They eventually reveal who gets the first date with Matt one-on-one, and it's Bree, and they're riding ATVs and the girls are extensively jealous. They see the ATVs outside because they kind of walk outside with her to go see it, and Matt's there with her and they're like, oh my god, I'm so jealous, it's so whatever. Like, girls, I mean, there's so many of you either got a chance to talk with him the day before. If you hadn't even talked to him since the limo, did you really have that much of expectations that it was going to be you picked? Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. I'm almost kind of also surprised that he can remember their names during the rose ceremony, just talking to them, picking them. I'm like, how do you remember all of them? Like, that's just a big, I don't want to say it's a job because it's just kind of fun and entertainment for them, like a big job to fill, like remember all of them and like be personal and such. But the girls are like mostly calm about Bree getting the first date aside from Victoria. This entire episode, you were yelling at the screen, rolling your eyes, looking at your phone because Victoria is making comments, because she's staring at the camera, where they're just giving her way too much screen time. It's kind of just like almost counting down the days until she finally leaves, because everyone says she's like a good producer contestant because like she just creates drama and she's annoying and she just makes you kind of just like annoyed to watch the show, but also like you can't look away. So she's obviously that person. She does not seem serious at all about him or just being at the show in general, because I don't really know anyone like that in real life. So it's kind of like weird to me. She was complaining and it just screamed producers at me. She was saying how this is a sorority to some girls, but not to her. She's not here to make friends, which again, I get that, it's The Bachelor. So it's one guy and contestant and you're all trying to like eventually fight for his love. But the way she's going about it is just so like ick, and like calm yourself. It's been one day. He barely even knows you. You don't know him. So like, why is it like this at all? But alas, we need this kind of drama in the show to be interesting. But like the girls were like calling her out, saying she was jealous and stuff. And she's like, I'm not jealous. It's just, it should be me on there. I'm like, okay, like I'm over this girl already. I've been over her since the first episode. But during the date, we see Matt and Bree and they fly off the ATV. I don't even know how that happened. I'm sure they just like swerved, whatever. And I see them in the mud. I'm like, all right, that's a wild first date. But what do I know about first dates? But I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. We're getting to this kind of start. And then after they like kind of park their ATV and like continue the date, like on land, his shirt comes off for some reason. I'm like, yeah, you're good to look at, but like what was the intent of that? Made no reason, because he took it off and the girl's like talking about his body and everything. And he starts like chopping axe. Like, what? I'm like, these are not realistic dates. Like, what is this? But you know, it's a TV show and I'm all for it. I'm doing reviews because it's really entertaining to me. But this is just like, all right, Matt, we get it. You're dope. You ride your Peloton, you work out. But then they share a kiss and you can kind of just see there's like that chemistry between them, because I think some people don't get their roses during the date if like it wasn't there. Maybe wouldn't kiss if it wasn't all like that. But as you go on the further the episodes, a lot of the girls are asking him to kiss them. And I was like, oh, like these girls are really forward. I don't know if they normally do or if it's the guy that typically initiates it because like they're the man and stuff. Like it's very like, these girls know what they want and they're very forward and like about it. And I'm just like, woof. And it kind of goes back to the house and it goes to Victoria just talking about how I'm sick of them meaning the other contestants. And I was like convinced she was either talking to herself or the wall, but it turns out it was the producer, because she was just going off like, these girls are so annoying. I'm so sick of them. And I'm like seeing her talking, like, who is she talking to? And eventually you see a person with a mask on, and like, I think that's only the like cast of like the producers and like production that wear the mask. Like on the screen, like we didn't see their name or anything. They didn't have like a diary room confessional. And I'm like, is it that serious that she has to do all that? Like, I'm just very shocked at this point. And then she's going off about how she doesn't want a group date. She doesn't deserve a group date. She needs a one-on-one. Like, Oh, Victoria is wasting a lot of energy, not only from that, the viewers, the contestants. Like, if she wasn't there, it'd probably be like a real competition and like who was fighting for his love or who has like a genuine chance of getting his love, because this girl is just doing too much for me. During the date, there's the fireworks and all the girls were outside and they're just really jealous. And I'm like, yeah, imagine like your first date and you're the first of the first dates and you get fireworks, the ATV, and the girls are stuck inside with Victoria. I'd cry. After that, the girls get an envelope that reveals the girls that are gonna be on the group date. And as the girls reading out the list, it's just going on and on and on. You're like, is this list gonna end? Are there like 20 people? Is it the whole cast? Like, there's just so many girls there. You have to put so many girls in the group dates. Like, it's just really impossible to really have that, I guess, one-on-one time. I keep saying one-on-one, I want to do something different, but I'm like, sheesh, like I can only imagine how stressful it is this season for them. And unfortunately, Victoria is a part of the group, and I feel like everyone didn't want her to be on it for her sake, but also because why would you want to be on a group date with Victoria? Because that just sounds like chaos to me, because she'd probably take center attention, which she did. On the first group date, it is raining outside. I was like, sheesh, because I'm a California girl. I'm not really used to rain or having to be outside in rain. I'm inside. So I'm like, I can only imagine what it's like being on a first group date, trying to get this man's attention. I had to have my umbrella and stuff. And it's just like, ooh, but they're going out and they see Matt in his like suit and he's having like a fake photo shoot. And it turns out that the challenge essentially is like the women have to dress up in like wedding dresses and take pictures with him to, I guess, envision how the wedding would be if they get married. They did this last season with Tayshia and Zach and like the other guys. So I was like, I don't really know if I'd want like a fake photo shoot, but that's what it is. And Victoria's being extra. She finds her crown, as she says, her tiara, and saying she's the queen, because again, the show is giving her energy and has queen written on her bio for whatever reason, for her occupation. And the girls are one by one getting their photos until Victoria decides to cut the line, walks in front of the camera during a photo shoot, and eventually like, oh, it's my turn, but it was supposed to be somebody else's. And did y'all see that man's face? When she did all that, it was so cringe. At that point, you just know that he's just keeping her because I don't know how it works. Like the TV show tells them to keep him, or like I just want to know what it's like in production where it's like, no, you have to keep them, like they're telling them that or something, because there is no way he would have kept her. I know it's only been one episode, but there's no way he would have kept her as long as he had if, I don't know, like just in real life, because it's just not realistic. Like she's just being too much and she like had a garter on her and everyone had to watch it. And then lo and behold, Chris Harrison walks in and cuts off the line and is like, hey, sorry girls, there's no one-on-one photo shoots anymore. You have to do something different, more physical. And I'm like, yeah, like Victoria cut off everybody and that was fine. And they let that happen. And then they have another thing after there where it's a joint effort after they're supposed to kind of have like a one-on-one within the group date production. So they explain it's like a physical-ish kind of game where it's like run around. I just had football in my head. It was really hard to like really just like understand what they were doing other than like running across and grabbing something and having to get it to the other side. And eventually the red team wins, and that was the team again with Victoria on there. And then another girl was an MVP from the blue team and she won. So they kind of all got to go on that date, like a little cocktail party, and the loser team had to go home and didn't get that time. And they were rightfully so upset. They were called out essentially by the girls who were still at the house that weren't on that group date. They're like, oh, why are you guys so dejected? Like you normally look more excited and stuff. And she's like, yeah, I just didn't get that chance and now we're here. I'm like, yeah, that's just really, really stressful. I can only imagine. So now the second one-on-one date goes to Sarah. Sarah, I remember seeing her in the first episode, so it kind of makes sense that he remembered her and wanted her specifically for the one-on-one date. And they go off in a little like plane jet thing. And I'm like, wow, like y'all are really taking advantage of like the situation. Quarantine where? Like this is not a thing anymore. It's what it seems with this episode. And kind of start to like unpack layers a little bit, but for Matt's kind of understanding, it wasn't enough. He said that he felt like she was holding back until she finally reveals that her father has a medical condition. And I'm like, oh, this is like a heart-wrenching moment, but it was like enough for him to feel like she was opening up to him and like, I guess, felt like he was getting closer to her. In the resolution at the group date, Matt gives the group date to Lauren. They seem to bond over their faith. They were talking about like religion, and surprise, surprise, the other girls were emotional when they realized they didn't get it, especially Victoria, and she was complaining about how she thought she was going to get it, didn't know how that girl did it, what they talked about, and why it wasn't her. I'm like, I'm right now, I'm tired that I had to keep saying her name over and over, but she's like an essential part of this entire episode. Before the rose ceremony began, Matt started to have more conversations with the girls, and I completely forgot about Abigail. She was the one who got the first impression rose the last episode, and I was like, wow, like that was the one that everyone's like, keep her at all costs, she's so sweet. Like, not saying there's anything changed about her, but I forgot about her because there's just so much that's going on this episode. And then he had a conversation with Marilyn. I do remember her, not like anything specific, but I remember her face. And she was kind of getting emotional because she hadn't really gotten a chance to talk to him in a while. And then he was like, oh, I do remember you. I got you an orchid. You said that you liked orchids. I'm like, How did he, one, remember her name? Obtain an orchid, remember that. There's so many girls there. Some girls didn't even have a conversation with this man, and somehow that happened. I don't know. I don't have anything against him. I don't know the man, obviously, but I'm just like, there's just so many little like things where I'm like, I don't get it, how this could happen in real life. And it's good. And after Marilyn has a little time, it shows Victoria like in the corner, lurking, just being pissed. I'm like, what's gonna happen? Where is this going? And Victoria's saying how Marilyn is negative and toxic and brings negative energy to the conversation, into the room and everything, and just makes her not want to be in a room with her. And I'm like, I saw the little like argument thing that happened. Like Marilyn was essentially just calling her out and just being like the only bold person in the room. But Victoria, the queen, took it the wrong way, considering she seems so bold and strong and confident. I'm surprised she took it to heart. And she's like, I didn't want to bring this up to Matt, but I'm gonna have to. So she goes to Matt and like, sorry, I'm gonna bring this up. Marilyn's a bully. She was my roommate, and he like kind of focuses on was like, are you guys not roommates anymore? It's like, no, I had to sleep on the couch. And I'm like, did it get that bad that like we missed that? I doubt the TV show would have cut out those excerpts if it wasn't that like big of a drama thing. But Victoria's like, Marilyn, like this, like you need to take her out, like she needs to get removed from the show. She doesn't say this to him directly, but she's saying this to us as well. And Matt's like, wow, like Victoria's been so honest to me thus far. There's no reason why she'd be lying to me now. I'm taking what she said into consideration. I'm just like, this man's a fool. This man's foolish. But again, like, oh man, I was talking so fast, there's just so much. But I'm like, I felt bad for Marilyn. I don't feel bad for Victoria. There's no reason to. And Matt's just like really upset about the situation. And I see him talk about it with Chris Harrison for a second and then pulls Marilyn. He's like, Marilyn, so I wanted to talk to you about this. So I learned that you were bullying Victoria. Marilyn's just like baffled, like I'm confused it even got to this. I'm surprised I'm even getting brought into this. Like I'm just trying to have my one-on-one moment because they already had one. And imagine they had like a good time and he gave her a flower and it turns into Victoria sabotaging not only Marilyn's time, Victoria's time, but the rest of the house, because the whole focal point was around trying to figure out the drama, who's telling the truth, what do I do? So it was all centered around that a lot of girls got robbed of their one-on-one time with him, which really sucked and I felt bad for them. But when they eventually get out of that little situation, Marilyn and Victoria talk. Marilyn tries to call Victoria and like, hey, like let's talk about it. Victoria's like, I'm not going outside. It's too cold outside. And she's like, okay, let me talk to you on the couch. And she like tells the girls to get off the couch. She's like, I'm not gonna sit next to you. You're negative. We're like vinegar and oil. We're just not gonna talk. I don't want to talk to you. You're wasting my time. Like at this point, I know, how do I say this? Victoria said she doesn't want to have friends. I get that. But this is just a lot. A lot. And the girls are getting pissed because all this energy is on this and he doesn't even have the energy or time to try and talk to these other girls. So she's robbed them of their time alone. This always happens every season, it seems. Like there's always some sort of drama that takes the attention away from the people who need it. But alas, we get to the rose ceremony and the girls are pissed and they're like, Victoria, why did you need to bring this up then? She's like, because she doesn't deserve to be here. She needs to leave. And I'm like, this girl is too much. At the rose ceremony, Matt probably only gave out a few roses. I wasn't able to count it before Sarah from the plane date kind of almost collapsed in a way. I almost thought it was like someone who almost collapsed because like they just didn't think they were getting a rose, but I think she already had a rose at that time. The medic gets called, Matt ends the ceremony essentially, like kind of ends it. The camera is shaky and it's just like, what's going on? The medic comes and I'm like, oh Lord. So it says to be continued. We don't know exactly who's going home yet. We don't learn until the next episode. But Lord, yeah, that was a wild episode. And I'm again, at least glad that it's very entertaining. I might do a Bachelorette drinking game, but it has to be after I do these reviews because I would not do it during the review because I would not be able to do this right now and be coherent. But let me know if y'all are interested in me doing that. I'm just really curious how I'm going to be able to like look at the rules I found on Instagram, by the way, and like be able to drink while I'm watching it. But if I do, I'm going to try and do it right now or after this episode. So again, give me a thumbs up if you are really interested in that and you're enjoying these reviews, and see you on the next video. Bye.